Now then, our next guest has a truly fascinating story. Bingo Allison was studying to be a priest, living life as a straight man with a wife and 3 children, when they had an epiphany.
After discovering their true identity, Bingo came out as genderqueer and, in doing so, becoming the UK's first openly non-binary priest. And Bingo joins us now. Welcome. It's really lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
Let's start back at the early days of all of this, your childhood. And you grew up in a very strongly religious home.
Yeah.
So for you, there was a lot of confusion growing up.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, it was almost like there was another reality, which was the LGBT world, that was just so far beyond what I experienced. I don't think I'd met any gay people when I was younger, and I'd certainly not met any trans people. The trans people that were in the media were kind of the butt of jokes and kind of not really something, you know, that you would aspire to. And so it's almost like there was this whole world that didn't exist for me.
So you obviously weren't around that area, that community, but at the same time you did have questions about your own identity and your own sexuality, but you feel didn't have the vocabulary to understand it.
It's almost like, you know, if you don't have the word for it, then you can't really own it for yourself. It was, you know, I kept kind of wondering about myself and, you know, I didn't feel the same as other children growing up, but I kept coming up to questions and not having words to answer them.
Scary, actually, and worrying when you can't find the words. So there were sort of some key moments that were to unlock who you were to become, who you are now today. So there was your late 20s, you were watching this documentary and this was about a non-binary person and this really resonated with you for the very first time.
Yes, it was like a moment of, oh, there is a word for this, and there are people out there who have thought about this, and kind of there's a whole community of people who are working this out together, and I don't have to be alone.
So what did you discover? What did you hear?
Well, so, you know, I'd been kind of questioning my gender for a while and kind of, you know, each time I come up the question, well, am I a woman? And the answer came, no. And because I didn't have any other answer, I thought, well, I better go and be a bloke then. And then, you know, to hear this word, genderqueer, and to hear this understanding of what it was to be non-binary, to be something other than a man or a woman, I was like, there it is. That's the word that I need to unlock. And then, of course, you know, you go and you talk to people who are further down the road than you are, who actually have spent time thinking about stuff. And you know, I had some amazing non-binary, particularly non-binary Christians, to guide me along kind of my way of working this out, really.
So, obviously, religion and your faith is incredibly important to you. And up until really this sort of discovery and this awakening in some ways, you know, you'd been using things like, you've been talking about gay marriage as an issue, as if it was something troubling and something that was bad. And really, people will find a lot in religious texts to back that up. However, you were reading a piece and there was something in there that really was the real kind of moment when you were like, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, you know, I had this discovery, I found these non-binary people, and then my kind of upbringing kicks in and basically says, you now have to choose between this identity and your faith. And I was at Vicar Training College at the time, and so I was also choosing between my calling and this identity.
Oh, my gosh.
And everything about kind of how I'd been brought up so far said that this is a choice that you have to make. And then I was writing a very boring essay. It was very dull, as most vicar training essays are. And I was studying this part of the Bible, the beginning of the Bible, that talks about how the world was made. And it has this verse in it that says, male and female, God created them. And I just kept coming back to this verse and going, well, there it is. There's my decision. I have to choose between this God who created just male and just female, or my identity that doesn't feel male or female. And in this very dry and dusty academic essay, I felt the presence and love of God. I had to stop and I had to pray and I had to sing a bit. And then I did a little bit more of my essay because it still had to be handed in the next day. And then I maybe had a little bit more of a pray and a sing and a think about it. And I just really felt that God affirmed me in who I was and that I didn't have to make this choice.
The point you make, which I thought was lovely when I read it this morning, is the fact that there you have, you know, sort of male, female, but God also created night and day, but he also created the times in between, dawn and twilight.
That's lovely.
Creation is full of variety. That's what we learn from creation, is that God loves variety. God creates all these different animals. We're still discovering new animals. And the fact that we're discovering new ways of understanding gender makes perfect sense for a God who loves variety.
What did the church say? How have they reacted to you?
They were very supportive on the whole. I think they were mostly concerned for my welfare. It's a public ministry that I have, and so, their concern was that I needed to spend some time thinking through what it meant for my ministry and for, not just for my faith, but for being a priest and all that kind of stuff. And that kind of lined up with what I was thinking, because I didn't want to go straight into absolutely everything. I wanted to spend time thinking about what this meant for me.
But also, as we said at the beginning, you were, at the time, you were married, you had a wife, you had 3 children. So there are, I'm assuming, not only with your spirituality, but there are other conversations at home that have to be had.
Definitely. I mean, both me and my wife have come from these more conservative religious backgrounds, and so for both of us it was a real journey to work out together what my identity meant for our faith, what it meant for our marriage, what it meant for the promises that we made for each other. And in the end, we kind of came down to the fact that when you marry someone, you marry the person they're going to become as well as the person that they are.
Yeah.
And it took time and it took a lot of soul-searching together.
Obviously, over the last 3 years, I have had a great many conversations with people who are struggling enormously with their sexuality, up to the point where they are thinking that perhaps the only option might be to take their lives. And I've always said there is always a way through. Many of those people have said one of the greatest blocks to them being their true self is God and their religion. What do you say to them?
I would say that actually this journey that you're going on is a profoundly spiritual journey. We are called into more authentic versions of ourselves. We are called to stand before the divine, before the universe, however you want to describe it, before God, as an authentic version of who we were created to be. And that is a lifelong journey for everybody, not just people dealing with their sexuality, with their gender.
Does God understand?
Absolutely. God created us. God loves us enormously.
Thank you. It's really great to meet you. I know you're doing lots of work in schools, and luckily the younger generation seem to be grasshole this a lot better than anyone. We have a lot to learn from them.
I'm in awe, absolutely in awe.
Yeah, good.
Lovely
Well,
to meet
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.